What's up, everybody? John Eric Polai here with My MMA News, and talk about an exciting time of the year. WrestleMania just wrapped up. Now, of course, on April 23rd, the PFL returns for the first time in over a year. So, lots going on. I know what you're thinking. What does the WWE have to do with the PFL? Well, I have the answer to that question. It is today's guest. Miss Lilian Garcia is joining us, of course, longtime ring announcer for the WWE. Now does the ring announcing for the PFL. So let's bring Lilian in here. Welcome her to the program. Lilian, how are you doing? And thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be here today.
Hey there, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. And you can see this grin is so big because just hearing you say that next week is finally happening after waiting a year and a half. Last time I stepped into the cage was New Year's Eve of 2019. So yeah, this girl is ready.
I bet that you are. And I guess we'll start with that just right there. Just how excited are you for this upcoming season? Because a lot of great matches at the PFL has some new signees, a lot going on for this season.
So excited. I mean, I was already excited for obviously 2020. And the great thing, though, that happened because the season didn't happen, we ended up doing this show called Prep Point. And I had the opportunity to interview some of these new fighters that are coming in, like Bubba Jenkins and so many more, Tom Lawler. And the list goes on so many that I got to interview for Prep Point. And I got to know their story. So now, getting to see them in the cage, especially after waiting an entire whole year to get in there, is really exciting. I think that's the key, is when people can hear somebody's backstory and then watching them fight, it just does something even more special for the fight. So I really do hope that people go back and listen to my interviews with Prep Point, because it will get you fired up for next week.
100%. It's always great getting to know the fighters' stories inside and out, because there's so much more than just tuning in to your television screen and watching them that night on fight night, because all of the fighters really have great stories and great backgrounds as well. And now, Lillian, I want to talk a little bit about your background before we get more into the weeds of the PFL stuff here. Of course, everybody probably is familiar with you from your years with the WWE as a ring announcer. Now, of course, like we said, you're with the PFL. Just how exactly did you get started as a ring announcer? Because it's a career that, does it really have a rhyme or reason as how to get a job like that?
Yeah, it's not like I ever said, in my future, I want to be a ring announcer. That was just not on my radar. Especially being a female and a male-dominated sport, it was not on my radar. But back in 1999, I had an agent who called me up who said, hey, the WWF at the time, as we know, they would like to interview you. And I literally thought it was the wildlife fund that wanted to interview me. I don't know, to interview some pandas or do some stories about wildlife. The last thing I expected was it was going to be the wildlife of wrestling. But you know what? I watched it as a kid with my dad. I was a fan. So when they called me, I was like, I feel like I have to give this a shot. And I didn't know what exactly it was for. I knew it was not for a wrestler. I knew it had to do something with broadcasting, but it wasn't until they hired me and I showed up on my very first day on the job that they told me at 3:30 that afternoon that I was going to actually be replacing the legend Howard Finkel and going to be the brand new ring announcer for Monday Night Raw, live in front of 14 million people worldwide and 20,000 people that were in the arena. And then no cue cards, by the way. They told me that little bit 20 minutes before going live. I almost ran. Thank God I didn't, and turned it into a 15-year career. And it's just been fascinating. And it just goes to show you sometimes life does not have to be exactly the way you thought it was going to be. Just go with the flow, and it can open up even more. Because I got to incorporate singing, which is my passion, which was my dream. I got to incorporate singing within WWE, so that made it even more special.
And we are going to talk about that music career a little bit coming up here, but for right now, I want to get back into the PFL just a little bit here. You mentioned how you got started in your industry and Monday Night Raw and the WWF and all of that, but just how'd you get involved then with the PFL?
So I actually got a contact from Ryan Satin, who's my friend, and he called me and he's like, hey, the PFL is looking for you and they would like to have a conversation with you. And I was just like, the PFL? He goes, yeah, Professional Fighters League. I'm like, wait, in MMA? like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I never thought about that, but I would love to have the same mentality that my agent had told me, right? When he gave me that opportunity with WWF back in the day, he said to me, look, have a conversation, try out the audition. You never know. So I took that same mentality and I said, let me have the conversation with the PFL. Let me see what they're all about. And as soon as I did, I was sold from the very moment that I met James and George Greenberg. I love them. I love the whole concept of the regular season, the playoffs, the championship. For somebody like me, who really didn't grow up as an MMA, advocate or just as a fan of MMA, I was like, this makes it easier for me to follow the fighters. This gives me something very exciting to look forward to. And that's exactly what happened. And as I was sitting at cage side and getting to know their stories and getting to see them advance, I just became a bigger and bigger fan of not just MMA and combat sports, but the PFL format.
So it's funny that you actually say that there, where you didn't grow up as a MMA fan, because I have a similar story too. And now here I am covering it. When I was growing up, my dad was a huge boxing fan. So even as a little kid, like, for boxing to be on in the house was just normal on a Saturday night on Homebox to see boxing on. And then when, like, the UFC was first starting to get big and MMA was kind of starting to, like, pass boxing out, you could say, I didn't even want to watch it because I was trying to stay loyal to the boxing background. My dad was finally like, you have to watch one of the events. I could tell you you're going to like it, and I did. But now, obviously, that's a little bit easier transition going from boxing into MMA. How was your transition? Because obviously, the WWE, granted, it's choreographed, but still, those guys, they're great athletes, and they really do take shots from time to time. It's like, was it kind of an easier transition that you experienced the WWE all those years?
I think it definitely helped that I actually had the experience of the WWE, of working with those athletes, of seeing what they do, sitting at cage side or ringside for as long as I did. I had the front of the front row, the best seat in the house. I saw the dedication, the athleticism that they put in into every single match, into their bodies, and then getting to know them backstage, incredible people. So it made me very intrigued to find out about the MMA world, where I thought it was, oh my God, these two just want to go in there and kill each other. I thought it was just so intense that I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And it wasn't until I was sitting at cage side and then I got the opportunity to interview Lance Palmer. And when I did that for Chasing Glory, I asked him, I said, you backstage, me getting to know you, you're such a nice guy and so humble. How do you go in there and just so fierce and dominant? He explained it how he just looks at the technique of it and how he incorporates everything from boxing to wrestling to jiu-jitsu, judo, mixed martial arts, and how they look at it and it's like, okay, what can I get in here? What can I do this at this moment? What am I going to do this? And so I realized it's not two guys going in there to just kill each other. It really is two guys going in there using their techniques to find out, what can I do at this moment that I can get my opponent down? And when you look at it through those lenses, it just does become a sport. And now I get it. Even though they might get bloodied up, I understand the whole concept of it. And that's what made me a true fan of the sport, is really getting to see both sides. I think it helped me that I came from wrestling and now going into MMA and seeing not just wrestling being used there, but all the other mixed martial arts.
I really loved that answer there. And as you were telling it, the thing that I thought of was back when Meryl Streep that time gave her speech, was at the Oscars or whatever it was, and she was like saying that mixed martial arts are not the arts. It really is an art form when you go out there and see the strategies that these guys have to use and all the different backgrounds that they learn and implement them inside of the cage.
That's right. And I think Clarissa Shields, I think it's going to be exciting to see what she does, because, she signed on to the PFL. She's going to have some showcase fights, but she's big in boxing. She knows the boxing world. And now here she is. She's incorporating that, but now having to learn all of these different styles. And it's going to be interesting to see how Clarissa does, in that, incorporating jiu-jitsu and judo and, wrestling and everything else that it takes. So I think that that's what's so intriguing. And I love talking about it. As you can see, I get so excited. I love sports, and have really loved combat sports. And I'm just really thrilled to be in this world. And again, the PFL is starting next week, and my fan base, my fans over at WWE, they're incredible. And a lot of them last season, I would say in 2019, they said, you know what, we followed you. We didn't know anything about MMA. We didn't know anything really about, combat sports. We followed you, and we ended up loving it. So I'm really excited that more fans are going to be coming over and checking it out.
I really love that the sport's evolving every single day and every single year. Just more and more fans have been coming into the sport, and it's really great to see the way it's been taking off. But now, Lilian, I do want to ask you some WWE questions, if that's okay. And I guess we'll start with current day right now. Are you still employed with the WWE? I know you do a lot with your podcast, interviewing people. Over the weekend when I heard WrestleMania, I heard it was a throwback clip, but I remember hearing your voice. Do you still do work for the WWE or no?
No, I'm not contracted by the WWE. I just, whenever they want me to come in and do a guest role or something like that, guest ring announcing or something like that, I'm definitely there, or an autograph signing. But I am with the PFL. However, the PFL is so great that anything that the WWE requests of me, they're like, absolutely, you go do it. I mean, I don't even have to ask permission, because they know that I am really in both worlds, and it makes it exciting. It's always great to go back and do things for the WWE, like having Chasing Glory on the WWE network. That was huge. And, I can't wait for a new season of that to hit, which is now on Peacock, to talk about, some with those superstars. And gosh, Apollo Crews is a perfect example. I had him on Chasing Glory, and we talked about how his career was not really going anywhere, but then how he realized he was holding himself back. And he attributed being on Chasing Glory. He spoke later on with Corey, and he said on After the Bell, he said, when I saw myself on Chasing Glory and I heard all those answers, and he goes, man, I realized, what am I doing? And then look at him now, he's champ, and he's doing so good. And for somebody like Apollo Crews, I can't be happier, because he's such a great guy to the core. And then just finally he realized what his talent is, and how he could be humble, but don't have to go to the extreme and hold yourself back. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to dabble in both worlds, for sure.
So now, obviously, you did that for a long time. Do you have any memories that stick out at the top of your head, whether that be from an event, or maybe hanging out with all of the WWE superstars when you guys weren't working and just hanging out? Any good stories for us?
Yeah, backstage was always so great. Just every day when I'd come there, and it's not just the superstars, it's also the crew. You definitely get to have this, family camaraderie, and you see each other. And with the crew, man, I always hung out with them, and just always so happy to see them, and hugging them every week and all. But then the superstars, and getting to know who they are as people, and also getting to know some of the struggles, because when you're around people 52 weeks a year, and sometimes you're around them even more than your family members, with that schedule at WWE, you get to know the highs and the lows. And so when you help each other out during the lows, that's something that was very beneficial. I mean, many a times, I even went through my divorce when I was with the WWE. I would be in that locker room crying my eyes out, and it would be the other female superstars that would help me out in that moment, and vice versa. I do that for them. So that's something that you take, just in your heart wherever you go, that these aren't just co-workers. They're people and other humans that care for other humans. And between that and then the fans are so incredible. Some of the most amazing, loyal fans in the world. And whenever I got to see them and hug them and high five them, I mean, that for me was everything, especially when we'd go overseas to Europe. I mean, the fan base that would show up. I remember being in Egypt. I have a cute story to tell you. So we were in Egypt, and a bus of us, we had off in the afternoon, and we decided we were going to go to see the pyramids. And that was always a fantasy of mine. Like that was on my bucket list, just to go see them. And we pull up somehow, some way, the kids found out, people found out, the parents found out. All of a sudden, the bus is surrounded by all these kids and their parents, and they're dying to see us. But it was so much, we couldn't even get off the bus. But what really struck me was when there's a camel right there next to the bus, just looking in, just like the kids. I was like, oh my God, yeah, we're definitely not in America. We are definitely in Egypt. Unfortunately, we couldn't get off the bus, so a lot of the superstars didn't get to go inside the pyramids. I made sure the next day I wore a baseball cap. I went with a personal escort. I put my hair up and I was like, I am going to make this happen. And I went inside the pyramids. Amazing. But it's stories like that, though, that the fans from all over the world that you go, wow, that's incredible that somebody in Egypt knows who I am.
It's those stories that we like hearing. And a memory of mine, I feel bad because we're smiling and having a great conversation, but a WWE memory that I have that I don't think I'll ever forget because I can still vividly remember this. It's actually a sad thing that I wanted to ask you about because it was in the time that you were there. I still remember it was 2005. I was in 7th grade. Me and my brother, we shared a room in our house, and my mom woke us up for school on Monday and goes, when you go out, read the newspaper, some guy in the WWE died. And my mom doesn't know who anybody is. We're like, what? Who? She goes, some Eddie Guerrero. And me and my brother look at each other like, Eddie died? As if we're on a first name basis with the guy. We go sprinting out, reading the newspaper. That day in school, everybody that watched the WWE had frowns on their faces, couldn't believe it. Then we tuned into Monday Night Raw, and the tribute that you guys gave him was incredible. I still remember the music video playing with all of his old highlights and the 10 bell count and all of that. Obviously, you were in the arena that day firsthand. Can you just talk about what it was like to be there in that moment, and what really, even as a somber and sad event, is really what I feel is like one of the bigger moments in WWE history?
Yeah, that moment was definitely crazy. I'll never forget. I can still picture it to this day as I had my bags in my hand, rolling them into the arena. And even before I got to the arena door, they had those big doors open. I remember even before I made it in, somebody told me right there, and I just stopped, and I'm like, wait, what? I was so shocked. Because Eddie was doing so good, and he's such a special guy. And I am so honored I got to work with Eddie, and especially as a Latina, and him being Latino, it was a special bond that he and I had, which is even why I ended up writing a song about him. It's called Live On. You can actually get it on YouTube. It's still up there. And the words, if you listen to the words, it's all about Eddie and how he was really getting his life together, and just the impression that he left on all of us, and his great talent, and how sometimes you just don't understand the reasoning. But his memory, his spirit really does live on to this day. You've got people, remember Sasha Banks talking about what an impression Eddie made on her. And there's so many wrestlers that are now, in the WWE that they were kids during that time that were watching Eddie and getting influenced by him. So it's amazing what you can do as a human being. And sometimes we don't think enough of ourselves that we can actually have an impression on people. But I think that's why it's important when you go out there, I don't care who you are, when you go out there and know that you can make an impression on someone. So be your best you, so that somebody can get inspired and you leave that legacy behind. And Eddie left quite a legacy.
Indeed he did. And as soon as we get done with this interview, I am going to go on YouTube and check that song out. And this is a great segue now into your music career, because I did want to ask you about that. And it's something you alluded to earlier, where you were saying you got to sing the national anthem at the WWE events, and that kind of got your music career started. We'll begin with just your passion for music. Where did that all begin and come from?
Yeah, I've been singing since I was 5 years old. I grew up in Madrid, Spain. My dad was working for the American Embassy, and he wanted to learn how to play guitar, acoustic Spanish guitar. So he brought over the instructor, and the instructor would start playing some songs to show him here's your goal, here. And next thing you knew, my sister and I started singing with him. And he would look and he was like, wait, what's going on here? And he just started playing song after song after song. My poor dad never learned how to play the guitar because the instructor, all he did was come over and play songs so that my sister and I could sing. But that was it. Like, it was instilled in that moment. And I just remember singing all the time, everywhere. And then I got into my first band when I was 14. My mom chaperoned so that I could be at the clubs performing. So while all the other kids were doing, you know, the weekend things that you do in middle school and high school, I was in the clubs singing away, and with a great band, and got so much experience. And that led me to be in a 14-piece orchestra in New York City, Starlight Orchestra. And I remember playing at the St. Regis and the Plaza, and Eartha Kitt coming up to me and being like, crying, saying, don't ever quit, don't ever quit. Michael Bolton stepping up on the stage and singing with us. I mean, there was star after star after star that was in the audience that would just come up and be a part of the show. And it was just something so special. I've just loved it since. So when The Rock actually found out that I sang, and we were forming a friendship from all the backstage interviews that he and I were doing, he told the producers, hey, we always play the national anthem instrumental before the events. Why don't we try her out and let her see what she could do? And that was it. They tried me out. And by Monday, Vince McMahon heard about it and goes, I want to see it for myself tonight. I did it right before Monday Night Raw. And then I ended up doing it for 15 years and hold the record for singing the most times at WrestleMania, and sang around the world for the troops, which that was, you know, as an Army brat, very, very special to me. And it's been incredible. And I'll give you some news too, in that I've decided in this, you know, 2020 was the year of me doing some more writing and really going internal. And now that my mom recently passed away, I realized, like, I cannot hold this stuff inside of me anymore. I owe it to her as well, who put me into all of these opportunities. You know, her and my father, they were always watching me with the band and just being there front and center. I owe it to them to allow my voice to be heard and to do what I'm passionate about and to live my life every day as it is my last, because you don't know. And so I'm very, very inspired and very excited to be releasing new music soon. And yeah, it's going to be freeing for me. I need to get this out.
Lilian, my condolences on the passing of your mother, but really looking forward to seeing the music come out. Tell everybody a little bit too, like, if they want to go and start listening to some of your music right now. Of course, check out when the new music does come out. Where do they see your music at, or listen to your music at?
Yeah, you can get it wherever you find music, whether it's Apple podcast, or not podcast, sorry. Whether it's Apple Music or whether it's Spotify, any platform where music is available. I have a Spanish album called Quiero Vivir, and that was a labor of love. And I have a duet with John Cicada on there. George Noriega, Tim Mitchell were my producers. It's really something I'm very, very proud of. And then I also have an English EP that I put out as well with the producer Oh Hush. And I've since also released singles. So there's plenty of music you can catch out there. And then, you know, what's coming up now, I'm just really excited about it.
Awesome. And Lilian, you're very busy between doing PFL, WWE, singing. You're also busy with the podcast. I know you've referenced it here or there throughout the interview. Tell everybody a little bit more, though, about the podcast, what they could expect if they haven't seen it yet, and where they could see it at. Chasing
Glory, definitely a labor of love. Started in 2016, and we're going into our 5th year now. You know, it was a podcast where it was every single week, 52 weeks a year. And then when it got signed on with the WWE Network, went ahead and created seasons. So we're doing seasonal based. And I realized through the podcast and listening to all these amazing Chasing Glory stories, which is what the premise of the show is talking about the struggles and the journey of getting to the glory. And what does glory even mean? Everyone, you know, has a different meaning. So getting the different meaning from the superstars or from other athletes that I interview, or wellness coaches or entrepreneurs and singers, it's just incredible to get their journey And I realized as I'm listening to it, I'm not really doing my own journey. And that's when I realized I have got to do this just seasonal based, because I can't do 52 weeks a year of this show and then also try to do a singing career. You said it, wearing a lot of hats, and then doing the PFL and WWE, all of that. So I realized right now, like, okay, we just finished what's called the Chasing Glory series. And that was a flashback really to classic episodes. And I did that while I was caretaking for my mom. I was her full-time caretaker. I realized I can't do these interviews. So we ended up releasing some episodes that had never been seen that were in the vault. And then now focusing on the PFL, focusing on the release of some of my new music, it's like, okay, Chasing Glory's got to go on hold right now while I go chase my glory. And then we'll be picking it right back up later on. And I can't wait to see some of the new, talent that we'll be interviewing.
Awesome, Lilian. We appreciate all the time today. We covered a lot of ground here today. One last thing, though, before you roll out. Social media, management, sponsors, anything that you need to plug that you haven't done yet, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. And I really appreciate everybody who did listen to this interview and want to get to know me and my world a little bit more. You can follow me at Lilian Garcia. Lilian is with one L in the middle. And you can follow me there on Instagram or Twitter, and Lilian Garcia official fan page on Facebook. For anything Chasing Glory, just go to @ChasingGlory on Instagram or chasingglory.com. And of course, LilianGarcia.com. Like, that pretty much encompasses anything and everything that you can get to know me and my journey a little bit more.
Lilian, thank you again for all of the time here today. What a fantastic interview. I mean, we covered a lot of ground: PFL, WWE, music, podcasting. It's just really great stuff. I really enjoy watching you throughout the years, through your career at the WWE, now into the PFL. And for everybody out there, too, if you want to see the upcoming PFL season, you want to see Lilian doing her announcing, April 23rd, Friday night, that's when the PFL returns. That's this Friday, too, so just make sure that you guys have that date circled. Check it out. And also, guys, check out MyMMANews. Great content comes out there 7 days a week. Please go to our social media accounts. Give us a like and a follow. And also, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You'll see more great interviews just like we just did here today with Lilian, with plenty of other talented fighters throughout all different promotions. And as always, guys, I appreciate everyone that subscribes to the channel and keeps checking out our work at MyMMANews. We'll see you later, everybody.